Okay, thank you very much for this kind invitation. I'm very glad to be able to talk about the impact of climate change on agriculture and the agriculture on climate change, and of course how electronics can help to mitigate, which is what IEEE can do today. So the outline will be the carbon cycle and the climate change. We need to understand exactly what is happening before we can go into the more I would say, into the more details about what is happening. But first of all, we have to study and we have to well understand the problem. I'm going to talk about the impact of climate change on agriculture. And after, I'm going to talk about the impact of agriculture on climate change. And then I am trying to give some ideas of what electronics can and technology can do. And finally, I will ask some questions. I will put some brainstorming and discussion. Uh, Okay, so just to remember, the carbon cycle is a natural process in which carbon moves through the Earth and its ecosystem. It's a natural way of recycling carbon atoms, and the carbon cycle describes the continuous travel of carbon atoms from the Earth to the atmosphere. And there is four main steps. The carbon sequestration is when most of the plants are absorbing the CO2 through respiration, through the photosynthesis, and they generate oxygen. Respiration and decomposition is when we breathe ourselves, animals breathe, and we are emitting some CO2 as well. And decomposition, when we pass away, or the animal pass away, or a tree is to the end of its life, and there is decomposition also generating some emissions. The fossil fuel combustion, when we are burning fossil fuel, and the carbon deposition, when it's the carbon is going to the sea, which is the main sink of carbon. This is the carbon cycle as we know, so we are trying to explain that very, very fastly. So we have the organic carbon going to the CO2 cycle, where we have the plant respiration, making some emissions. We have the animal respiration, the dead organism and waste products that are also doing some emission, and also it's creating fossil and fossil fuels. And we have the decay organism and the photosynthesis. And of course, we have this part, which is the auto and factory emission, which is, I would say this is the part that was added to the CO2 cycle. For the greenhouse gases, we are talking about four main greenhouse gases. The carbon dioxide, dioxide, CO2, which is the most significant greenhouse gases emitted by human activities, is released through the burning of fossil fuels, the coal, the oil, and so on, and released by deforestation. And this is very important to remember. It's not only through the burning of fossil fuel, but it's also related to deforestation. We have the methane, which is result from natural processes, and human activities like the livestock farming, the coal mining, and the extraction and transportation of natural gas. Nitrous oxide, which is less important, emitted by agriculture and industrial activity, and the fluorinated gases include various synthetic gases, etc. Emission per sector, and this is very important. We see the most important sector doing emissions is the energy sector, and the second one is the agriculture. And you also have the land use change, which is unfortunately that we can relate to the agriculture, because the land use change is based on agriculture. So between these two sectors, we have an important amount of emissions coming from agriculture and land use change. But do not forget that the agriculture is the second emitting sector of CO2. So what is the impact of climate change in agriculture? Let's start looking what is the impact from the climate change to agriculture. So agriculture and fisheries are very sensitive to weather and climate. Agriculture relies on land, on water, nutrients, the most important nutrients are NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and other natural resource climate affects. How much the climate change will affect the agriculture depends on rate and severity of the change, and of course, adaptation of farmers, and we have to consider also the region. There are regions that will be more affected than others, on the agriculture will be more affected. And the climate change can affect several things like the crops, the livestock, the fisheries, soil and water resources, the ocean, the rural communities, and the agricultural industries. So the impact on agricultural productivity So condition can be better or worse depending on region. So, for example, today we are able to grow some crops in the north of Europe that we were not able in the past because of the climate change. Air pollution also damage crops, plants, and forests. Climate change can increase the threat of wildfire, which is very important because there is as there is wildfire, so we have CO2 emission. Temperature and precipitation change will expand the occurrence and range of insect, weeds, and disease. And the warmer temperature and change in precipitation will affect the plant's bloom and pollinators' growth. So do not forget that we need the pollinator. We need the pollinator to have food. Without the pollinator, without the bees, there is no food. Climate change will increase the frequency of heavy precipitation in some places of the world. We have soil erosion and depletion of nutrients. Heavy rains increase runoff into oceans, lakes, and streams, and coupled with morning temperature, we can produce epoxy in ocean with clear. But we are going to talk about water later today in the next presentation. Sea level rise will produce also erosion, agricultural land use, and salt water inflation. So the impact on crop, it's higher CO2 levels can affect crop yields. So the yield will not be good. High CO2 reduce the protein and nitrogen content in alfalfa and soybean, loss of quality. And maybe the high CO2 will increase the productivity, but will reduce the quality of the food we are growing. Extreme temperature and precipitation can prevent crops from growing. I know that very well when we have this extreme temperature, high temperature and low temperature, not only the high temperature. Droughts are challenging areas where rising summer temperatures cause soil to be drier. We have the weeds, the pests, and fungi food under warmer temperatures. And the high concentration of CO2 stimulate plant growth, as I said, but it reduces the nutritional value of food. It is important to consider this kind of thing. In livestock, we had the heat wave, increase the livestock vulnerability to disease, reduce fertility, and reduce milk production. So we are talking that the heat wave will affect dramatically the livestock, and not only for the meat, but also for the meat production. Droughts may threaten pasture and feed supply because we need to have the pasture and the feed supplies for the livestock. Climate change increases the prevalence of parasites and diseases that affect livestock. So we have then the change in veterinary practices. We are using more and more parasiticide that increase the risk of pesticide entering the food. And we know a lot of examples that what we are eating has a lot of pesticide. And increasing CO2 may increase also the productivity of pasture, but decrease their quality, so we will need more pasture to feed the animals. Fisheries, the migration of the species to colder region because we are heating the oceans, so the fish has to migrate to other places. Temperature change affect breeding and migration cycles on the ocean acidification regions, shellfish shells and acidification modify the marine ecosystem structure. So we have an important effect on the different part of the agri-food business. Okay, so now let's see on the other side the impact of agriculture on climate change and what electronic and technology can do. So agriculture is a major part of the climate change. So the agriculture is almost 1/3 of the total greenhouse gas emissions. 1/3. So on one hand, the agriculture is suffering from climate change, and on the other hand, agriculture is affecting the climate change by these emissions. The percentage could rise substantially as other sectors are reducing their emissions. So we are not working in the same way as energy or other sector or industry that are trying to reduce. We are continuing producing in the same way. 1/3 of food produced globally is either lost or waste. I need to address the food loss and waste also. And this is very important. The carbon emissions and food waste are greater than all transportation combined. So we also need to start, it's not only what technology and electronics can do, it's also how we change our mind and we start living in a different way to avoid emission, to avoid the food waste, and we will talk later, the food waste is also impacting food security. This is a picture that I have found in a newspaper. We can have a lot of electrical things, or we can do a lot of things, but if we are generating electricity or the energy from the fuel or from the fossil fuel, we are not saving anything. So we need to be sure that we are addressing all the green energy. So how agriculture contribute to the emissions? We have the deforestation that release carbon dioxide stored in trees and disrupt the carbon cycle. We have the burning of agricultural residues, which is very important, and small farmers are normally burning everything. Soil degradation and erosion due to poor agricultural practices. And so when organic matter decomposes with CO2. And this is very important, agricultural practices. We're going to see later that an important part of the farmers around the world are small farmers with no education and no knowledge about how to do things in a different way. Livestock production, the cattle produce methane, so we can call it fermentation, and manure decomposition. And the usage of synthetic fertilizer releases nitrous oxide. And the rice production is a major field of methane emission. It's the second one. The first one is coming from the cattle and livestock production. But the second one, source of methane emission is rice. Are we going to say that we are not going to eat any rice? This is a critical issue as well. So we have to find ways to measure that, and we have to find ways to change the way we produce the rice. So the use of agricultural machinery such as tractor and harvester has also contribute to the emissions. So there is one thing that is existing now, which is the climate smart agriculture, aim to achieve three outcomes: to increase productivity, more and better food, to improve nutrition security. The enhanced resilience is to reduce the vulnerability to drought, pest disease, and other kind of related. So there is a lot of research about this and to reduce the vulnerability to drought. But on the other to different climate change related. But on the other hand, we need to measure all that to be sure that we are changing, and the measurement is very well related to technology. And reduce emissions, pursue lower emissions in footprint. And that support is food and agriculture organization from the United Nations, strategic framework, the for better production, better nutrition, better environment, better life. And the practice are context specific depending on local socioeconomy. We cannot apply exactly the same practices in Europe and in Africa and in Latin America. There are different cultures, different economies, and this is the reason we say socioeconomic. And I was talking about the rice. Can we ask, for example, the Asian people to do not eat any more rice? No, we cannot. But we have to take into account the local socioeconomic, the environmental, and the climate change factor. And there is 5 actions we have to take: expanding the evidence base for this climate smart agriculture, supporting an agri policy framework, strengthening national and local institutions, enhancing funding and financing options, and implementing the practice at the field level, not only on the research, but we have to go to. This is a few examples about what we can do, the climate smart farming and forestry. So we have the graphs and all that, and we are providing information to the farmer so he can take actions, he or she. I am not saying, and I have discussed that with an agronomist, we are very far from the real smart agriculture because there is so many variables. For example, irrigation, smart irrigation. There is so many variables we have to measure. And there's so many sensors, and probably not all sensors are existing today, so we are really far. But we can provide information to the farmer to help the farmer to get decisions. So solutions through climate smart practice, reducing the emissions, the soil carbon storage, and so on and so on. And also benefits for releasing farming and forestry. So we can reduce the farm emission, or sometimes we can use, for example, energy generated from the methane and from the manure to put some energy into the farm. So there is a lot of things we can do. So the role of existing emerging technologies, so we see that hydrological modeling, we can work on hydrological modeling, the climate modeling for cropping is very important to really know what's happening on the soil and in the plant. There are some researchers that are looking at the soil, and other researchers are looking at the plant itself. For example, in Politecnico di Torino, I'm working on this project as well, we are trying to measure the impedance of the plant And from that, we are trying to deduct the health of the plant. We have the artificial intelligence, of course, and where we can predict some stuff, and we have the remote sensing application and so on. There is three implementation steps: the water distribution and plant monitoring, the plant interconnection, we call the plant area network, where we have the internet of plants, information exchange, global status management. And by the way, plants are already communicated. There is the volatile organic compound that they emit some gases, and from those gases they are communicated their health and how they are growing. And of course, we have the cloud management for that. But an important thing that we have to consider when we talk about the cloud: do we have communication availability in the field? Maybe in some developed countries, yes, not in the underdeveloped parts. I can tell you that some places in Chile, where I'm from, there are places in the field there is absolutely no internet at all. We are talking to the 5G and 6G, and there's places there is not even 1G, but there is nothing. So we have to look for other kind of communication, like LoRa or other kind of communication methodology. So grow and health of plant, I was explaining, is a very complex system. This is all the parameters we have to measure to be sure that the plant can grow. We have the plant itself, the soil, the environment, and we are working today on a model of growth where we need to have a function of all those environments. And you see electrical conductivity, the pH, the salinity of the soil, the texture of the soil, the temperature, the oxygen, etc., etc., etc. So main objective of the crop is sustainable precision agriculture, optimize the use of nutrients and resources. Over fertilization, over irrigation is as good as under fertilization and irrigation. So we have to improve the irrigation system. We have to reduce the chemical treatment and pesticide. Pesticide will not only affect the soil, but they will also affect the bees. And without bees, there is no pollination. So, and we have to have less invasive system detecting plant health and watering status, transfer the information and license provide information to farmers. This is a multidisciplinary effort, sensor located in the plant and in the soil. Devices have to be flexible, transparent, self-powered. There is energy is far from there. Do we need solar panels? Maybe not. Maybe just one battery will be enough for 50 years. So we also have to study the power of the system we are putting there. Smart electronic system and artificial intelligence, implant communication, transfer to the cloud, user-friendly interface, low power, low cost. Cost is very important. We are talking about farmers, and 80% of farmers in the world are small farmers that have less than 2 hectares. Okay, so we are talking about very small, very poor. Okay, plant sensor and biosensor, we have the different electrochemical sensor, images, rating evaluation, the VOC, volatile organic compounds in the plants, the ethylene, the methyl, just one. We have the impedance sensor, the environmental sensors, data fusion that combine the plant and the environmental data. And biosensor can be used to nutrient detection. This is very important because the fertilization will provide NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to the soil. But how we measure how much nutrients we have to put, how much fertilization? Today is going to optical sensor, and we are working on kind of low cost, low power sensor for that. Disease and pest detection, water quality monitoring. We have to monitor the quality of the water we are using to irrigate and the pesticide residue detection. So this is a livestock farm. We have the direct source of emissions and indirect source. We have the empiric fermentation, the manure management, the land exchange, livestock induced desertification, release from cultivated soil, carbon for food production, for water and so we have different sources of emissions for the livestock farming. So there is a new technology that is called the precision livestock farming, which is automated rating system, low-cost feed and water recording, imaging solution, animal sensing system, GPS tracking, and so on. But there is a lot of solutions. We are putting a lot of sensors on the collar of cows and different kind of animals. The benefit from this, so the better animal welfare and health, optimize the input level and maximize the production, reduction of the environmental impact, reduction of the methane emission, more resolving less land, so less deforestation. But the risk of affordability is quite expensive. As if containment it has devastating effect on usage of intrusive tax may affect animal welfare as well. You know, I have found 3 months ago that they are using virtual reality. I'm not talking anymore about metaverse because we are not using this real anymore. But they were putting this kind of glasses to cows for the milk production. So the cows with the virtual reality glasses were producing 20% more milk than the. Is that ethical? Is that good? Is that okay? I don't know. Personally, I think it is not ethical. So I don't like this kind of way of increasing the productivity of animals. So this is a summary of the livestock farming. So I'm not going into much more detail because I think it's time for me to finish. This is the overview of Internet of Things related to dairy farming. This is all the things we can measure, and so we are looking at the feeding, the field, the production, and the field management, and we send the information to we can send information to the cloud, so the farming can be aware of that. So brainstorming and discussion, and I will finish with that. Half of humanity is in danger of floods, droughts, extreme storm, and wildfire. No nation is immune. No nation is immune. Yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction. We have a choice: collective action or collective suicide. It is in our hand. That was told by Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, last year. Uh, this is very interesting, and I know in Europe there are some cities applying that, the donut economy, that is based on the planetary boundaries and the sustainable objective from the United Nations. You see that the social foundation, which is the internal part of the donut, is the United Nations objective, sustainable development objective, and the outside is what we call the planetary boundaries. That is coming from Johan Rockström or from the Stockholm Brazilian Centers. This theory is made by Kate Raywood, an economist working in 2020. So that was the situation in 2012. I just found a new paper with a new situation that you see here, that we have the climate change. Everything that is in red is that we are overdoing. Or in the inside, we are less doing. So the social condition, the water is not available everywhere. This is the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not going into detail. I suppose you know that. The regenerative agriculture is another way to change that. The minimum tillage, key residue in soil, maintain a living root, etc. The crop diversity. So, thank you very much for that. I hope I was not too long.
Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. Thank you very much. At the outset, I thank IEEE R8 and Dr. Nimet, Abdul Rahman, and Dr. Victor, who are left now, and all the members of IEEE R8 section, and also the other participants. In particular, some people, the participants who have joined from India. It's late night, 11:30 here. So the outline of my talk would be on climate change and the role what engineers can do, in particular on the marine aspect, and what are the UN bodies doing, particularly on WMO and UNESCO, Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, on the ocean-related aspects, and ocean data and early warning and shipping and emerging technologies, and island nation and innovation on societal needs. And we all know that this is clicking, and there is no more way we can escape through that. Even few minutes ago, the United Nations Secretary General spoke clearly that the way the nations are moving forward, we are going to have in the century end 2100 2.8 degree more than what expected. So there's going to be more catastrophe to come unless we are prepared. And in particular, I would like to show about the current, very recent Time magazine, which talks about the importance of ocean, what the ocean plays a major role. We all know that 70% of the earth is covered by ocean, and the air what we breathe, and the water what we drink, and the temperature what we live in, it all come from the ocean. So what is the ocean governance is all about? how the United Nations is talking about that. So UNESCO has got the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. More than 150 countries are involved in that. They all have joined together and working on the science component of the ocean. In particular, the work related to ocean data collection we call how to improve the scientific knowledge about the ocean climate and ecosystem, and what human impact and how human vulnerability takes care of that. Using this knowledge, talks about early warning related to ocean hazards, climate forecast and projection, ecosystem assessment and management, and good governance aspect. And the GOOS has evolved various ocean variables that is derived from the climate variables. Herein the importance of IEEE comes into that. We need to look at the sensors on physical, biological, chemical variables that need to be measured. And there are also standards involved. And it's often said that we can't manage unless we do the measurements. And another aspect is the United Nations, all the member states have joined together and declared this 10 years, 2021 to 30, as a UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We called it SDG 14, Life Below Water. Herein, the ocean plays a major role, and we need to look at it and bring an awareness among the people. Another important body in the United Nations is called World Meteorological Organization, which talks directly linked to the climate change, today's session, in addition to water as well as in the weather forecast, what we are talking. Wherein they have brought in after 70 years is called Earth System Approach. It's not atmosphere alone. There are ocean, there are hydro, cryo, and also all these aspects need to be taken into account as a whole system. In recent Congress, this was declared the three important decisions. To have all these things, there need to be unified data policy, there has to be a data sharing among the countries, there has to be a places where there's not much of measurement to start that, then there is a funding need. Here comes here comes the role of computing facility. Many of you may be from the computer science background. There are high performance computing systems are required. There are more amount of data is coming. Even the satellites are bringing more amount of data. We need to look at the currently it's 1.x scale of the computing. By 2030, do you need to increase the speed or do you have more storage? This was a discussion, and there's large amount of investment herein. The role of IEEE would bring new hardware technology, the software solutions that need to be looked into the aspect. Next, relevant to this, there was work done by Engineering Research Visioning Alliance, IERVA of NSF, and joined together. They have brought in what the engineers can do on the climate change aspect, on the mitigation and the role. They need to look at the engineering research community. They have to have develop tools, and to develop these tools, there need to be a significant and sustained investment that need to be there. They are divided into three components. The first is on the critical materials. That is nothing but all the materials relevant to engineering systems like extraction, separation, recycling, upcycling, and energy conservation and CO2 mitigation. Next is on sensors, sensing, and communication capability. Then finally, enable and strategic exploit of artificial intelligence. So the broad way they are divided. We have been seeing about what the climate change, and we have been witnessing about changes and the impact what is happening on the human system, sudden rainfall and cyclones and many other things. Now recently the governor in the US has declared in San Diego about sea erosion, which is happening because of sea level rise and many other aspects. Tsunamis. Recent studies have shown that one of the largest ever tsunami which happened in 1958 in Alaska was 1,720 feet. Look at it, many of the vulnerable zones close to the coast. If such tsunami occurs, are we prepared for that? SSTC surface temperature, it is really increasing. The WMO has brought out about climate change report, status report 2022. And even recently, in May, June, the period land temperature as well as the sea temperature has increased phenomenally. Even as you go on high altitude, the 0 degree has gone up more than 5,000 meters. And water, there's a big scarcity, and the water status report talks about the crisis. More than 7.7 billion people going to be affected, and many of them living along the coast. And ocean is a big sink of carbon, and this carbon source from the surface to the deep ocean is getting disturbed. Plastics, we will discuss about that. Major amount of plastic is coming from the human activity that has gone into the ocean, and that has got an impact in that. Finally, how the industries are prepared. Half of the executives say that climate change is a risk, but basically they are not at all prepared yet, and the contingency plan is not and ready. So UNDRR talks about United Nations Office of the Disaster Risk Reduction. They have been bringing out various policies and which need to be followed. For all these things, here is the role of engineers. We need to look at the innovative engineering solutions that can be broadly divided into digital innovation, where you need to look at the digital technologies, data innovation. The data need to be interpreted and different type of data source need to be collected where the sensing elements are required. Frugal innovation, which can be simple, which could be used or there are available already with the community that need to be brought in and expanded. Social innovation is nothing but where the society needs and society need to be supported by having these innovations. Now, I broadly brought into different category of my talk. One is on ocean data, which is my specialization, which the ocean observation is nothing but in situ and real-time data collection and modeling and forewarning applications. Could be weather, climate, or early warning, and we need an advancing computing facility. This picture talks about different type of in-situ measurements. There are different tools. Initially, we were thinking that shipboard measurements are good enough. However, the ocean does not wait for the ship to come. Here comes the autonomous tools. Here in the last 50, 60 years of advancement in technology, and various systems have been evolved, which is Illyrian Lagrangian principle. Some are moored, some are drifting, and they have been collecting and profiling ocean depth. And that's what today we talk about. El Nina, La Nina comes from this one of the instrument called Argo floats, which has been continuously collecting data and sharing this information to us. But still, it is not adequate enough. We need to look at newer tools that can work together. Here, I thought some case studies I'll explain where India had deployed last 25 years different type of observating tools, collecting various having different sensors fitted up to 500-meter water depth and continuously transmitting data once in 3 hours. Now, we have also joined together with the US because outside the exclusive economic zone, maybe 50% of the world ocean is covered by the respective countries. They need to collect the data within the EZ. Outside the EZ, they can join with others and collaborate and work together. Currently, there is not much of data sets available. That's the reason our prediction is not adequate enough. Herein, Indo and US have jointly brought in, and these data sets are freely available for anyone to use. There are also collaborative measures because we need to look at and measure with the different idea, different input, different tools, and also we need to look at the capacity building, how the students can be involved in that. This is a classic example where all these measures have been taken care. Herein you would say that what is the use of such a system? A classic case when we were all locked at home in 2020 May due to Corona, wherein the cyclone started at 12th May and landed on 20th May. There are few people worked there and there are few systems which remain functional. You can see that data sets which are provided, and out of 6 parameters that is required to predict the landfall, 3 of them come from the ocean, 3 are from the atmosphere. So we have been providing this, and that helped to have the evacuation of the people even during pandemic, and there is less amount of life means large amount of life saving and infrastructure saving had happened over there in spite of we had a corona lockdown. Here in an appreciation, it's not only for India, the region got benefited by having it. So for all these things, we need to have the system function. Let's see. Next is shipping. We know that shipping plays a major role. 90% of the ship traffic, particularly for oil transportation, comes from the ship, and also is one of the cheapest mode of transport for goods. Offshore oil and gas, that is exploration and exploitation of the resources in increasing. However, recent trends talks about autonomous shipping, and there are polar shipping route and marine atmosphere, the sulfur dioxide emission and nitrous oxide emission, as well as greenhouse gas, which is from the land source, can get into the ocean. And another aspect is ocean noise. We have been having shipping route, but other side of the coin, these noises can create issues with the marine mammals and their vocalization pattern gets disturbed. There are studies to talks about that. There are reports and publications which clearly shows that how the noise can affect, because noise can travel much faster in the ocean. No, these are all studies. We are going back to the conventional earlier days like sailboats, and there is a way by which these type of wind-driven ships can be evolved. 30% of the fuel can be saved, and also the Mayflower is an autonomous unmanned ship developed by IBM with a lot of AI and ML technique involved into that, where intelligence has been brought in into that. The ship is circumnavigating all. In future, maybe 100 years down the line, there may be more ships, less amount of human sailing on board. Now, all electric ferry, which has been evolved and being developed in US, and when this comes through, there again, there is a more amount of renewable energy saving. Herein, you can see what is the height and the structure is required. where both structural and other aspects need to look there when you develop an offshore installation. However, one side we are talking about climate change, the Arctic ice and Antarctic ice is melting. When the Arctic ice melt, there are industry which is trying to use it, particularly for ship transport. But there are other environmental agencies which is trying to stop over there. Currently, there are melting which is happening. We have also worked on it, and that is really alarming situation for us. Next is on ocean health. Yes, health of the ocean is very important for us. As long as ocean is healthy, our living becomes much easier. However, because the population is increasing, our need is increasing. We have crossed very recently 7 billion, and we'll be heading towards that. Now, look at the as issues related to plastics. We know the beneath which is happening. This is a marine plastic which has reached all over the ocean, including Arctic, including deep waters. Now, this will remain forever. This material did not exist few hundred years ago. Now, we have brought in into the system the carbon, the plastic footprint is going to be a major menace. Now, what we need to look at it, we are not here to discuss about the data. We are discussing about the solution. Here in a particular place, I just brought in here how in Dutch town they're using bubbles, the plastic are being trapped, the microplastic and nanoplastics that need to be cleaned. There are also major exercises like Pacific Gyre plastic that is being collected and that is being brought in for recycling. So this type of innovation is required to clean up. More than 1,600 rivers all over the world from the major cities, they are bringing this plastic into the ocean. We need to stop it. Emerging technologies. This emerging technology, yes, it has got a major role in climate change and climate mitigation aspect where engineers will be using it. In particular, how the IoT is linked to ocean engineering and AI/ML is linked to ocean engineering, how cloud computing, cyber security and are linked to ocean engineering. So this is a way where the advancement of technology or emerging technology that can be linked for a betterment of these ocean resources. Now, when you look at this exploitation of these intersection of this advancement in engineering, ocean engineering and emerging technologies, AI and ML people started using it on process analysis of large amount of data sets because more and more satellite, more and more industry observation or shipboard observation data sets are coming and more prediction is required. We need to run the model and have the forecast much faster. Development of underwater vehicle, which is really advancement. Now AI is being used for autonomous underwater vehicle inspection. Now has a potential to reduce the cost and also when you talk about IoT part, there are integrating the sensor, particularly communicating devices and software system. IoT will play a major role. And AR and VR, we know very well that will really help. Anything you want to test in the ocean is exponential cost. Now that is possible to be simulated. Now, next, I thought I'll touch upon what type of innovation is required, how that can be linked to the societal needs. Now, whatever you are talking about engineering innovation, that should reach the society. One could be on the coastal protection. Yes, coastal erosion is happening. There could be ocean-powered carbon removal, which in US they've started working on it. And there are also tools which has been developed, funded by Yep Carbon and Company, and also PNNL, one of the institute, wherein they have brought in like conventional way, electrochemistry principle. They are trying to have this carbon being removed from the atmosphere, and you know very well, the acidification is happening in the ocean. They want to bring back the condition. So that is what the ocean powered carbon renewal system is developed. Smart cable will explain the carbon storage and ecosystem water management, energy storage and greenhouse gas. Again, we need to first collect the data that's being really talked about that. And what I listed is few. There are many more things where innovation need to be looked into. Here in some case studies I thought I'll share with you. One among the cases, the conventional desalination technique you all must be knowing about, reverse osmosis. Here in close to India in Arabian Sea, there are few islands called Lakshadweep Islands, wherein this technique of low temperature thermal distillation process was evolved, wherein is innovative way the ocean at 500-meter depth, at 500-meter distance, we have got temperature of 11 degree. The surface sea water is vaporized using 20 millibar vacuum, and that is condensed by drawing the cold water. This is a simple technique, but that is more site specific, and this has been evolved and mastered and installed in 3 islands, functioning in one of the islands from 2005 onwards. Now, next you look at it, energy from the ocean that is being talked about it. There are various countries working on it. Various tools have been developed, like on waves, gas rates, that is a methane gas below the seabed, offshore wind and ocean thermal energy conversion and currents. These are all various way energy from the ocean can be used. Now, next is on the erosion. I thought another case study which my colleague Dr. Amramurthy had worked on it. There is one of the coast close to the place where currently I'm talking. We had a nice beach. Unfortunately, after the construction of the harbor, because of the coastal current, and this is more specific to this coast where the current reversal takes place, that lead to erosion of the beach. This beach did not exist. He has devised a technique by having a where there is a wave breaker is happening. Could be a wedge reef, a heavy weight of particular shape. You can see 900 tons that can be installed that will break in such a way that erosion is minimized. With this data and knowledge he has brought in the system and installed. Today we can see a solution has been evolved. The science only has brought the problems, and the science only can give a solution. With an application of the engineering knowledge, today you can see the people are happy and having a beach over there. This is what is engineering reaching the society. We have a happiness of contributing to the society by having our own engineering knowledge. Next, I'm involved in another group of people involved in smart, that is science monitoring and reliable telecommunication subsea systems, wherein we know very well when you talk about the measurements, there are also measurements done in a very small level, in nano level and micro level, happening in the ocean, and molecular level. There are something happening in the days, and there are something happening months and years. Climate systems are decadal wars. In particular, there's like a tsunami, which is having a long wave. You have short waves like wind-driven waves, and also the tidal wave. The long waves need to be measured. We need to look at all these aspects. And also, when you have look at it, there is another thinking which is happening, discussing now, is that you have the underwater telecommunication cable. Today what we are talking in internet, mainly because of this 1 million kilometer long cable which are laid on the seabed, crisscross across the continent, and they are able to transmit the data in optical wave. These optical cables are able to have the fast data transmission. Now there is a thinking that why can't we connect sensor to that so that we have fast, large amount of data sets in a very very accurate level. The conventional way of data transfer in kilobyte, which is happening with acoustic sensors and surface satellite transmission. If this comes through, this will be a great boon for the scientific community, in particular for tsunami application. After great persuasion, we were able to convince, and there's going to be a project in Portugal where the sensor would be attached in underwater telecommunication cable. When we are talking about it, the CEO of Google, Mr. Sundar Pichai, announced that they have about 16 billion worth of 16 telecommunication cable. They were using a polarization technique by which they were able to predict the cyclone and earthquake on the seabed. Because when the cable is calm, they normally monitor that there's no noise. The small aberration which happens mainly because of the what is happening on the surface, that could be tracked over there. So this is what is the technique we are talking. This is what an innovation we are looking into that. This is what the conventional way of thinking, we need to go away and try to look at it to understand. Next is on marine DNA and biologging. That's an interesting discipline where both science and engineering are coming together, where the environment DNA is one aspect, which is really fast way of looking at it. Biologging is some way where you can monitor by having the sensors attached to the system, having the measurement. There are already such systems with mammals have been attached, and that need to be expanded. Again, involvement of sensor and sensing element is an important thing. Deep sea exploration, the exploitation of the deep sea mineral resources are happening, and again involvement of engineers are required. Seabed mapping, very interesting project which is really happening. You can see the Google site, you can Google the site. Seabed 2030 is a Nippon funded big project involving UNESCO, wherein they are trying to have the mapping of the seabed. That data set should be transferred to people. Now for the communities and ocean robots, again we need to look at it. There are more and more efforts are required to develop ocean robots. One of the few important findings and recent application could be, this is one thing on a radar satellite. You have the precipitation of rain gauge by having space level. You have a satellite that is a carbon radar satellite, small satellite which can be launched. This is being done by tomorrow.io is a company which has started working. They launched it. Another one I thought, a hydrofoil, where you can see by having a convention Bernoulli principle and Newton's third law, we all know about that. This is the way whatever practical theoretical knowledge we have that can be applied for the mankind to develop such newer tools and technique involved. Finally, I thought I will cover. This is my pet topic. I've already conducted many workshops and seminar related to small island developing states and least developed countries. There are communities living in these island states where they are subjected to coastal hazards and they need to have a capacity development. They too have a native knowledge that need to be appreciated. See, small islands, even some of the islands having 100,000 people living over there are subjected to various type of natural hazards like floods, sea level rise, and also thunder and strike lightning and wind eruption and coastal inundation. Such things are happening. They are relying on fisheries and also on tourism. Now, one of the things you would have seen in Tonga and Pacific Island where tsunami occurred, and unfortunately there are less people living over there, and that has led to less amount of uh, death of people. However, they are vulnerable, they are very close to that need to be looked into that. Now, when you talk about all these things, engineers need to contribute in developing a cost effective sensors for them and a communication facility where from the remote area they were able to communicate. And they are also having a very good ecosystem, marine ecosystem that need to be, the pristine ecosystem need to be protected. So innovative technologies are required. And finally, what's the takeaway for us? It is known that changing individual and community behavior alone can make a significant change in whatever we are talking about. Many other issues are there, but as I remember, it was clearly brought in the first presentation where we need to look at or change ourselves by making one action per day, one change daily. We can change our lifestyle, inculcate the long-term environmental friendly habit to become a pro-planet people. We need to look at a multidisciplinary approach with engineers playing a major role and innovation in finding solution, emerging technologies in ocean engineering, developing sensor and sensing and communication system, specialist, socially relevant, robust technologies for small island developing states. With that, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much.